Well, hello, world. Welcome again to another edition of Someone You Should Know. I hope everyone is doing well and feeling well and are in good spirits. We started leaving our homes, and now some of those things have changed a bit. But I wish everyone well, and also welcome you to the show again. This week, I have got a very, very dear friend, Lisa Hammett, is in the house. And Lisa, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's so good to see you. We are both members of a wonderful networking group out of Allen, Texas. It's called NetWeavers, and Lisa, you're one of the founding members, aren't you?
I am.
And I just joined. Oh gosh, it's been about 6 months ago, or maybe a little bit more, because that was when we were meeting in person. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and we weren't meeting at the restaurant. We all miss it, but we do get together every week on Thursday mornings and all to interact through Zoom. And we've all, stayed in touch. And the beauty of networking, if those that are watching from across the country, there are lots of different ways to network. There are chambers of commerce, there are Rotary clubs. What makes NetWeavers a little different is, first of all, there's no financial involvement. People network and get together, and when we do meet at the restaurant, you want to have something to eat. You pay for it as you go, but not a lot of dues. It's all about friendships, building friendships, learning about each other's businesses, and then sharing that information. And Lisa is probably one of the generals of the organization in networking and doing one-on-ones and getting people together and sharing that information. And since we started off a little bit about NetWeavers, you want to take a minute and just tell everybody else a little bit about how NetWeavers started?
Oh gosh, well, it's interesting that I'm considered founding, because I wasn't there on the first day that it started, but I have been there, some of the longest length of time as some of the members. And it was kind of the brainchild of Jared Abshire, and he just really wanted to create a group that was really about net weaving and getting to know people. And obviously the motto, the people that you know, like, and trust, you'll do business with. So it wasn't about shuffling a bunch of business cards. It was more about, let's get to know each other. Let's have that interaction. And from there, organically, how can we help each other? And I've stayed with that group for so long because the contacts that I have made over the years, even if there are members that don't come anymore consistently, I'm still getting referrals, and I still connect with them, and I still refer people, because it's a really high quality, networking group, as you well said. So.
Yeah, the beauty is that every week they start off. We usually chat a little bit, and then when we get into the session, every member gets 60 seconds to tell a little bit about their business. If you will, their own little 1-minute infomercial, and then the guests get 30 seconds until they become member status. And that way, everybody every week talks about what they're doing, any new products that are in their business, or new services that they're offering. And it really gives everybody that connect every week. And so, for instance, if someone's in the financial business and you're talking to a friend that says, I'm really thinking about refinancing my house. Oh, listen, I know somebody from NetWeavers and all. I want you to get in touch with them, and at least they'll give you a shot. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And it's great. And it's easy when people contact you, because you got your hands in so many pies that listen, you got issues, call Lisa Hammett. She'll take care of you.
I'm kind of an overachiever, yeah, I admit.
Now you're not a native Texan.
No, I'm not.
No,
Nope.
you're from Northern California.
I am.
In fact, it's a relatively small city.
So actually, I was born in Palm Springs. I'm adopted. A lot of people don't know that. And my adopted parents were from Northern California, and we moved to a suburb called El Dorado Hills, which is outside of Sacramento. And I grew up there. And when I was growing up there, it was like 1,200 people. Well, now it's like hundreds of thousands of people. And a lot of people from the Bay Area have transplanted up to El Dorado Hills. So it's not this little tiny bedroom community anymore. So I grew up there and went to college in Stockton at University of the Pacific. And then after college, I moved to the Bay Area and spent many years in the Bay Area working in San Francisco and for various companies, and lived there, and then until we moved to Texas. So
yeah, and you say that you worked a lot in the Bay Area. You worked a lot in marketing and in what areas?
In retail, actually. And so I come from a retail background, and there's a West Coast store chain called Broadway Stores, which doesn't exist anymore, but were absorbed in the Federated umbrella, which eventually, was Macy's and the whole bit. So I worked for them, worked for Macy's, I've worked for Williams-Sonoma, J. Jill, The Sharper Image. I took an odd segue to work for Kinko's, which I loved. It was great, and managed a branch. And that's how I met my husband. So I say, had I not taken that weird segue, I probably never would have met my husband. And then pennies.
And you've been married how many years?
So we got married in 2003. So,
okay.
And we were together 7 years before we got married. So yeah, we've been together a long time.
Is that the time that you moved to Texas?
Yeah. So yes. We moved in 2002, April 12th of 2002, we moved. Okay. And let's see, JCPenney's corporate relocated us. I signed a 2-year contract thinking, we're going to be here 2 years, and we'll because both of us were born and raised in California, had lots of family, friends there. So we thought, we'll either go back to California or we'll move somewhere else, because we didn't have kids. So we thought, well, if we're going to move, now's the time to do it. So that was, like I said, 2002, and it's now 2020. So yeah, we're now Texans. And as much as I miss the weather in California, there are a lot of things I do not miss, and I'm delighted to be here. Absolutely love Texas.
Well, in doing a little of my research, you grew up in California near a very, very famous landmark. not too far away from where you grew up is Folsom Prison.
Oh yes, yes.
So because I was trying to figure out. Well, let me Google it here, and I'll see where El Dorado Hills is, and I see El Dorado Hills, and then there's a road there near called the Johnny Cash Highway or something that leads to Folsom Prison.
Yeah. Well, I did go to school there, but I kind of left that out. No, I'm kidding. But
all right, so you came here and you were with in the marketing area with JCPenney?
I was a merchandise planner, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was a senior merchandise planner. So basically what that is I told the buyer how much money he had to spend.
And they always asked for more.
Oh yeah, always. So, and I worked for pennies in the stores in California. So I kind of worked both sides. So I worked there for 3.5 years, and I needed to get out of retail. It's a great training ground, and I don't regret.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
I spent 40 years in it.
Yeah. So you get it. It is hard work.
Yeah.
It's kind of a beat down, and especially when you go into the corporate, it is the pressure and the intensity, and it's like the banking industry in the sense that it's so volatile and based on the economy. Right. And I have so many friends right now who are still in retail, and they're struggling just terribly due to COVID, and it's tough.
Yeah, well, if it's not COVID, it's the internet, because
Right?
to have a brick and mortar store and have an overhead that you've got to cover every month, and then hope that customers will walk in your door when you know that a lot of them are shopping online. And that was probably the thing in the last 5 to 8 years that my wife and I were in retail, and all those were the ones that the fun started to dwindle away from it, because we really enjoyed the one-on-one contact with our customers. And I'm sure you know all of that about that, because you then transitioned into some other businesses that definitely were people businesses, where you were interacting, one-on-one with them. And so we went from pennies. Then I know you're with a company called Pixingo. You also have been working with Sarah Blaine Jewelry. You just seem to keep dipping your toes into everything, don't you?
I do. I went into the direct selling industry, and it kind of a weird segue. I know a lot of people are like, well, why'd you do that? So when we moved here from Texas, or not from Texas, from California, we knew nobody. Nobody. We had no friends. We had no relatives. Nobody. So we ended up building a house in Frisco, and our alley neighbor, because we all had the rear entry, she had a Southern Living at Home party. And I had never heard of Southern Living at Home. So I thought, well, what a great way to meet the women in the neighborhood. So I went, promptly fell in love with the products. If you're not familiar with them, it was home decor based off of, it was a publishing company at one time that then opened up a direct sales division where we sold beautiful home decor pieces. So I loved it. And for the next couple years, actually, I was a very loyal purchaser, and I hosted parties, and I thought, wow, this would be a really fun job to do. But I was so ingrained in the corporate world, and just, couldn't envision myself taking the step from that. And then I'll never forget, it was in September of 2005, and I just reached my limit. I'm like, I have got to get out of this. It is a toxic environment. I don't want to be doing this. My health was suffering because I was so stressed out. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I had built up a good business, and I thought, I'm going to do this full time. And I did. And an industry or business was born, and it was great. I mean, I became a director. I earned a bunch of really fabulous trips and took the ride with Southern Living at Home. And then eventually they were purchased and became Willow House. Stayed with them through that transition. While I was at Willow House, the owner decided that he wanted to introduce a second brand in addition to home decor, because the home decor industry had started to decline. Parties weren't as popular in home parties, and people weren't spending as much money on home decor. Or if they were, they really wanted it at a discount, because of all the big box stores. So he thought jewelry. So he met Sarah Blaine and her husband Mendel and asked them to create a line of jewelry exclusively for Willow House. And I represented that, fell in love with it. And then unfortunately the business closed its doors like 6 years ago. And it took us all by surprise. But fortunately we had developed a great relationship with Sarah and Mendel. So when they decided to launch a direct sales division of what they were currently doing, a lot of us jumped on board. So that's how I got into it. Kind of a weird segue, but I love the industry, and Pixingo, I kind of picked that up also along the way because I love the products. I use it for
explain to the audience what Pixingo is, because I didn't know what it was, but it's similar to other businesses that I am familiar with. But what is Pixingo all about?
So it's really more of like a network marketing company, and it's a service that helps you send branded correspondence for your business. And you can set up marketing campaigns through direct mail, and you can send personal cards, invitations, announcements, that kind of thing. But it really was to provide that personal connection, because in the the age of social media, as we know, a lot of that personal connection has gone by the wayside. So, and studies have shown that, when you take the time to send like a personal note, or if you send something in the mail, it's likely to be around for 17 days versus a couple seconds on social media. So big difference.
Yeah, it's too easy to just hit the click and delete and all on the internet. But you're right, and I mean that's a double-edged sword in too, because not a day goes by that I don't go into my mailbox and I have maybe one letter and a couple of bills, and then there's 5 or 6 of these postcard size advertisements, either for picking up your unwanted goods, to donations, to Venetian blind companies, roofing companies, and all. However, just what you said, you go through some of those cards and you see something in there and you think, I don't need this now, but you put it in a drawer and you save it, because especially if it's something like a plumber that's got $50 off or something on a visit, and if something happens, you pull that out and say, I'm going to use that coupon. So I agree with you. I think that there is a little bit of a resurgence of direct mail. Number one, it used to be pretty costly. Now, when you look at the cost of other forms of advertising, that sometimes to get direct mail to a targeted audience is much more cost effective.
Yes. Yeah.
And now, how long have you been with Pixingo?
Oh gosh, 6.5 years, I think. Oh. Yeah, it's a great company. I love it. I'm still with it. It's not my primary focus like it had been. I actually started Pixingo when Willow House closed because I wanted to stay in the industry, and I built a great business with it. And then Sarah and Mendel came back and said, "Oh, we're launching a direct selling jewelry." So I jumped on that. So I ended up doing both, but it worked. They complemented each other, and the correspondence and the quality of it, I love it. So continue to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And if folks want to learn about for instance, Pixingo and what you do with Pixingo, they can go to pixingo.com/Lisa Hammett.
Exactly. /Lisa Hammett. Yep. That's my website.
And Mark, our producer, and all will be scrolling a little bit across the screen from time to time, your email address and your phone number, and all. Folks, anytime this young lady and all has got lots of ideas, and if she can't help you directly, she has the connections to people that can help you. But it just sounds like you're not the kind of person that when you find out that a company you're working with is absorbed by another corporation or something, or they decide they're going to close their doors, you don't say, "Oh, what am I going to do now?" You're a stepping stone person. You just move from one to the next, and probably one of the most amazing stories about Lisa Hammett was people are looking at this very, very pretty young lady on the screen, and I even found it hard to believe that you were very, very heavy at one time, almost to the point I saw a photo, and now you can see your cheeks and you can see your jaw and all, but it was round at one time. And all. When did that happen? And what was how did that fit into your other businesses that you were doing?
Good question. So in the late 90s, we were still in California, and I was working for Sharper Image at the time in San Francisco. I joined Weight Watchers, which is now called WW. And I joined it in at work. We called it At Work at that time. And there was a financial building in San Francisco that held a lunchtime meeting. So I joined that with a good friend of mine, and I lost 45 pounds, and I kept it off for 3 years. And then we moved to Texas.
And all of that barbecue. brisket and chili and
Oh yeah, Tex-Mex, So
yeah.
all of the great habits that I had developed, and I was incredibly active in California, and I'm still active now. But I mean, I was hiking like 2 to 3 days a week all year round. I was an avid long distance cyclist. I was very, very active. And I mean, let's face it, our weather here makes it a little challenging sometimes to do those outdoor activities. So I took the wrong mentality and said, oh, well, I can't do anything because it's too hot or it's too cold or it's whatever. And I made excuses. So I gained the 45 plus an additional 20 back. And I was miserable. I just felt terrible. I was having like feet issues. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So in 2010, I basically said, this is ridiculous. I need to stop this.
So you transitioned from California. California, you were heavy. You lost all of the weight. You moved to Texas, and now it's like a big reversal.
Yeah. So like I said, in 2010, I was at the heaviest I'd ever been, and I felt terrible. And I'm like, I can't live my life this way, and I know better, and I don't want to be miserable. So I went through the program again and lost the 65 pounds, and I've kept it off with the exception of about 5 pounds, give or take sometimes a year. So it's and I'll tell you, I struggle like everybody else does. It's not like, oh, you lose the weight and you're cured. No, that's not true. It's a daily choice, but I do work for the company WW now, and I 7.5 years. It'll be 8 years in November. And I started very part-time and have been able to incorporate that in with all my other things. Well, now, since the jewelry has gone, my business closed, and things are different. I'm taking on more responsibility with WW, and then I'm also kind of transitioning using the skills that I've learned and developed through my member coaching, which I still do, and my many years in direct sales. I'm kind of migrating into something different. So it's, when you say like stepping stones, I look back on my life and I'm like, it's really interesting how this period in my life transitioned me into this due to this skill set or these people that I became in contact with, or, what have the experiences, or just moving. So it's been really interesting to see how all of that has kind of evolved.
Well, it seems to me that you're the type of personality that when you get into something or involved in something and you see it, for instance, the jewelry, you like the jewelry and you start wearing the jewelry and you say, I'll bet I could sell this jewelry. And so you do. You get involved with Weight Watchers simply to lose weight, and you say, I'll bet I could coach other people to do this too. And I think you said you're a life member of Weight Watchers now too. So it's commendable how your personality and your attitude just wraps around something and embraces it, and it's something that I think a lot of us and aspire to do, but we just don't. And you have the ability to do that. Now, you said you lost a ton of weight, and again, as I say, I saw some photos, and you have kept that weight off for a number of years. Has that allowed you to become more active again?
Oh, absolutely, and feel much better, and absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that I talk to members about and tell myself is, why do you do this? Why do you want to be on this journey? Why do you want to lose the weight? I mean, the why is so important, and your why can evolve and change as you evolve and change. But a big why for me is I do not like taking medication, and I don't want to be old down the road and be on a bunch of medication. I don't. And I unfortunately do have like degenerative, arthritis issues like in my knees. And at some point we'll probably have to get knee replacement surgery, but I am trying to postpone that for as long as possible. And by keeping the weight off and staying active, I can do that and manage it without having to take a bunch of medication. Because I'm all for being holistic and being proactive instead of reactive. So.
And it's interesting that you say that, because it's almost like I'm looking in a mirror, because it's very much my life too. I was a runner for 20 years. I absolutely loved running events, and I even enjoyed just my daily runs, which would be between 3 and 5 miles. And I used to do some long distance running. Then I blew out a knee, and I couldn't run anymore. Torn meniscus, I was told. And the doctor says, we'll do that surgically. And I said, let me think about it for a while. Just like you said, I went to glucosamine and chondroitin, took the tablets, and about 13 weeks later, my knee felt a lot better. Now, I'm talking probably almost 20 years ago now that all of this happened. And so even though I still have issues with the knee, I still am not the type of person to say, okay, surgery is the answer. I'm also dealing with osteoarthritis and all. I'm having some skeletal issues. And again, the doctor says, let's try some exercise and manipulations and physical therapy. And I said, absolutely, anything short of spinal fusions and all that stuff. And I'm not a pill popper either. I don't really want to, unless it really gets bad. The difference between you and me, and I'll say it right in front of you and to my entire audience, Lisa does something about her weight, and I have not gotten there yet. But I'm getting to the point now where I realize that at my age and my weight, that the only way that I can now help those joints and the ability to keep moving as I get older is I've got to take some of the baggage off. And having said that, this is another stepping stone that Lisa Hammett now says, you know what? I've coached myself, and I'm taking a holistic approach. Maybe I should do something with that. And that's a direction that you're moving in now. And I want you to share with our listeners and viewers and all, how does one realize that they reach that brink and that they've got to do something, and you now have the tools and the ability and the background in order to make it happen and turn it into a if you will, a coaching business?
Great question. So first thing is, as far as being ready, your head needs to be in the game. And what I mean by that is you need to have the right mindset. And for years, obviously, I did not have the right mindset because I gained all my weight back plus 20 pounds. So although I didn't feel good and I would look at pictures of myself and didn't like the way I looked, it wasn't that strong of a mindset to do something about it. And then one day, I saw a picture of me in a newspaper for an event. And honestly, I was horrified at how I looked. And I mean, I knew that I was overweight, but it really struck me. And I'm like, enough. And I got my head in the game, and I've stayed that way. Now, that's what I do a lot with my personal coaching. So I help individuals one-on-one really delve into those mindset issues. It's what are those stumbling blocks that are helping you or preventing you from helping yourself, getting to where you want to be. So we talk a lot about why do you want something? Why are you where you're at right now? And then we look at mindset. And I mean, I have to work on my personal mindset every day. I mean, if you go onto any of my social media, I don't post anything negative. I don't. I'm not saying I don't have a bad day like everybody else does, but I am not going to blast it out on social media. And I am really trying hard to stay positive, by being thankful, and Lori Roberts, as you know very well,
Yes.
and NetWeavers is a gratitude coach, and she does this beautifully, and she is so inspiring. And I strive to be like that all the time, to really be grateful and thankful. So I share all that because that is all part of the mindset component that, I talk about in my coaching. And absolutely, we talk about weight issues, we talk about eating and activity, but what I am not, and I don't want to be, because there are people out there who could do it better. I'm not a nutritionist. I am a certified coach, but I am not a nutritionist, and I am not a personal trainer, and I don't want to be either. But I love helping people with goal setting. And I think that's why I've been so resilient over the years and able to move on, because I set very powerful goals for myself and I look at the big picture. Where do I want to be long term? So I can do that, so I work with the goal setting and the mindset. And from there, then we help develop healthy habits that are sustainable. Because the key is, if you can't sustain it, it's not worth doing.
And it's interesting. So I sense that what other people may do to help people with their body, you do to help them with their mind. To get them into that position of saying, it's almost like, I remember at one time when I was on a diet, I put a sign on the refrigerator and all, and it just simply said, "Do you really need to open this door?" And it was a mental thing. And sometimes, okay, just get a nice big glass of water, instead of perusing the refrigerator. Because if you open that door, you're going to find something to put in your mouth. Unfortunately, I'm probably in that position where I've got to get that mindset going again, to do that. You mentioned in our conversation earlier a little bit that you've had some medical challenges. I have too. I'm a cancer survivor. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, that was so devastating to my psyche that, almost everything was irrelevant. And I almost stopped eating because I was terrified. I was concerned. Fortunately, within a year, I was cancer free. And the downside was, then I said, "Oh, well, I'm cancer free. I'm okay." So run over to the bakery and get a dozen and celebrate. But
you're not alone. Please know that.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that there are far more people that have that I don't care attitude than there are the ones, like you say, that you've got to get to the point where you say to yourself, "I got to do something." Like an alcoholic saying, you can't stop drinking until you admit that you're an alcoholic.
Yep.
So I'm a foodaholic, and I haven't gotten to the point. So what is it within this program that Lisa Hammett is doing with people in order to put them in that mindset that they need? What is part of that program?
So, a part of it, again, is a lot of the mindset work. We work on, putting your head in the game by focusing on positive things. How do you treat others? Do you treat others the way you treat yourself? That common things like that. And then really developing the sustainable habits. It's, I had a member this morning who said to me, she said, "I need to drink more water." I'm like, "Okay, what does more water look like to you?" And she said, "Well, I should." And she kept saying should. "I should do this. I should do that." And I'm like, "Why do you think you should?" "Well, because that's what I'm told." "Who's telling you?" "Well, the media. This is what I've heard." And I said, "Okay, so you feel like you should. Are you doing it?" "No." "Why are you not doing it? Is that realistic?" "No. I do about 3. I do about 3 a day." And she's talking 16 ounces. So it's a decent amount. I'm like, okay, so drinking more water. Let's talk about a realistic goal that you can start with. Okay. So we came up, I said, why don't you work on consistently drinking the 3? And once you've mastered that, then maybe you add another one. But I said, how does it make you feel when you consistently let yourself down and don't achieve what you think you should do? And she said, I feel terrible. I just feel like a failure. And I'm like, well, that's not working. And you're not a failure. You're human. So let's break this down and figure out what is realistic and go from there. So I do a lot of work like that.
It's very interesting. I know that I have heard a phrase that I've heard is, well, I just can't drink all that water because I'll be in the bathroom every 15 minutes.
I am.
Yeah, and hey, if that's part of the process, then do it. And I just heard somebody say that to determine, and it might have been my doctor, because with the osteoarthritis, they say that a lot more water in your daily routine. They say to whatever your weight is, divide that in half, and that's how many ounces of water you should consume in a day. So if you're 200 pounds, you should take in 100 ounces of water. Well, those little 12 or 16 ounce bottles that you drink, you're talking about drinking 5-6 or more of those a day. But and then you say, well, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. And what is water? It's just good cold liquid, 0 calories. There's no preservatives in it, no additives, no artificial anything. And unless you just have to have your, alpine water or something like that, the water you get out of the tap or out of your refrigerator and all is perfectly drinkable. And I'm trying to get to that point, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me. Is that sometimes if you think I want to grab a handful of nuts, or I want to grab a handful of chocolate covered raisins or something, grab a bottle of water and drink it, the whole bottle, and all of a sudden you don't have that urge for food. Is that feasible?
Yeah, that's feasible. I mean, there's reasons why to do that, because and you say you're a food addict. Well, I'm a food addict too. I would never have gone through WW if I wasn't. I mean, I love food. So, and we laugh in workshops and say, yeah, we're basically the AA for food addicts, So you recognize that maybe reaching for those nuts, or I guess you have to figure out, why are you reaching for them? Are you hungry? And if you're really hungry, then is it the right choice what you're grabbing? And it might be, if you're really hungry and you haven't really eaten anything. Or if it's just that you're just mindlessly doing it because the jar's there and you're bored, then right. Absolutely what you said is great. Try, some water. And a lot of times when we think that we are hungry, we're actually thirsty, and we don't recognize that. So sometimes that can help, and it also just makes you feel fuller, anyway. So that is a good practice. But then again, it kind of boils down to, why are you reaching for the food in the first place?
Well, and I know that with Weight Watchers and other programs like that, if you have a craving for nuts, that's okay, but you take a few nuts to satisfy the craving. I'm the kind of person, and there's an awful lot of people like me, that you're not satisfied with just a few nuts. It's got to be a cup, and then after one cup, you go to a second cup. It's portion control. I want to ask your opinion. There are a lot of, Lord knows there's thousands of diets out there, and they're all different across the board. But some of them have to do with prepackaged food that you order or so. It's another form of diet. It's kind of portion control, but what's your opinion of some of those programs that you have to sign up and get your food delivered?
So it boils down, in my opinion, to sustainability. So if you do that, can you sustain that long term? Can you eat prepackaged meals until you die? Probably not.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that those meals are terrible. I'm not saying anything negative about that. In fact, it's funny that you asked me this question because I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, about this. And she was asking, we were talking about, different, keto and intermittent fasting and everything. And I said, bottom line is it boils down to sustainability. Obviously working for WW, when I am in my WW world, I am a full 100% proponent of, what they're doing. But if you're just asking me as like a health coach, I would say, again, it boils down to sustainability and what you can do long term. And if what you're going to do, it might help you lose weight and you could drop it quickly. And that's great. But then when you when you finish that and go off and resume all of the habits that you were doing before and gain your weight back, one, it's defeating. And two, that is worse health-wise. There have been numerous studies supporting this, that it is better for your overall health and I'm not saying everybody should be overweight, but it is better for your overall health to maintain a healthier, more stable weight. And it might be a little higher than where you ultimately want to be than doing this yo-yo thing. Because the yo-yo thing shocks your system. And that is what can cause, a stroke or just your heart to give out, because it puts your system into a shock. So whatever that you can do that is sustainable, that will keep you more at an even level, that is what you should do.
And then just maybe trim those portions down a little bit, and the one ingredient we haven't really touched upon is the exercise or movement. I mean, even if it is something as simple as walking, unfortunately, because of back or leg issues that I have, I'm reduced to walking the dog and maybe doing a little bit of mild walking and occasionally maybe a little bit of bike riding. But the days of tennis and golf as exercise is over. And for a lot of people, because of injury or so, that may be the case. So how does one who is not able to get that exercise component in, how do they do that? Because now they've got to really concentrate on the dietary side of the program.
So that is an excellent question. So kind of a rule of thumb is we're 80% what we eat. So 80% of what we put into our bodies is going to impact our weight. Okay. The other 20% consists of activity. And it is important, regardless of your age, your gender, your weight, it is important that every single person be active to some degree. Now, to your point, as we age, we may not have the same ability that we did when we were younger. And that is okay. That is okay. Then you need to find what will work for you. It's interesting. We had a topic about this in a workshop recently about sitting and how sitting is considered the new cancer. And it's because our bodies were designed to move. What happens when we sit? Our spinal column doesn't, I'm drawing a blank on what I'm trying to say, but it's not aligned properly. And as a result, it impacts our organs. And if our organs aren't optimally working properly, that can impact all different kinds of things. So this can all happen if we sit all the time. So, it is better to just be up and down throughout the day than to maybe work out in whatever you think that is for an hour in the morning or an hour and a half in the morning and then sit all day long. So, in going back to what you were saying is, how can you just get up and move more throughout the day? Start with that. I mean, for people that I've worked with who are very, very overweight and have a lot to lose, they physically, that's all they can do is just get up. I'm like, okay, then you get up and you do what you can do. And if you have to sit down, that's okay. But the thing is, as you lose the weight, your energy level is going to be better. You're going to be more flexible. So you are going to be able to do things.
And add more to that. Yeah.
So you know what, Stuart? Some of those things that you mentioned that you say I can't do now, well, maybe you can't do now. But you know what? You said that you wanted to lose some weight. I'm not saying you need to, but if that's your choice and you want to, you might be able to do some of those. So you don't know. I mean, but bottom line is be where you're at. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, perfect sense. Because I've gone into looking at the packaged meals at the store, and the one ingredient that they always seem to do is it adds sodium, and as you get older, sodium can be a killer. So to make this bland food taste good, they simply add some sodium to it. Well, it's a matter of doing what's right, and that's why someone like Lisa becomes very, very helpful, because you can say, okay, I need to modify my life a little bit, and I need some help because obviously I haven't been able to do it on my own. Time is flying away from us, and there's another avenue that I want to discuss with you because I know it's very important to you. Okay. And that is fundraising. You have been involved in fundraising for many, many years, and I want you to share with our listeners and viewers a little about what fundraising means to you.
Okay, thank you for asking that. So when I worked with Jewelry by Sarah Blaine, the reason I enjoyed my jewelry business so much wasn't just about the fact that I represented beautiful jewelry, because I did, and I loved the owners of the company. But it didn't put a fire in my belly to say, oh, buy a pair of earrings. I mean, that was not, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but what I really started to enjoy was the ability that I had based on the business model to fundraise and to really see how I could raise substantial money for organizations or individuals. And that was so rewarding, and I could see how it really made an impact. So one of the components, and I'm in the process of really creating a big company that involves, different facets. But one of the things that I'm working on right now is the fundraising component, so that I can help, nonprofits, small and medium-sized businesses on creative ways to fundraise. Because let's face it, the world as we know it has changed. And it probably will be forever changed. And the days of these huge galas and these just big events, we can't do things the way we used to, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we need to be creative and think outside the box of what we can do. And it might mean more smaller scale things, but they can be incredibly effective. A gal that I network with, she's part of the Hope Clinic, actually, in McKinney, which provides healthcare for people who can't afford healthcare, basically. They had an online auction, and they raised, I want to say, over $60,000 on a virtual online auction. So if they can do it, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of how do you go about doing it? And I can help with that. So that's also something that I'm really passionate about and I love to do. So
yeah, in many cases, what it is taking the ideas that you have grown up with and practiced and repurposing them to the new whatever we call the new normal. You've certainly been able to do that through your business lifetime and repurposing yourself. And I applaud you for that. You're an inspiration. And again, folks have been watching the show. We very, very much appreciate it. Get in touch with Lisa.Hammett at
att.net.
att.net. There it is. Thank you, Mark. You got the phone number and the email. Drop in and ask any questions. The one thing about Lisa is if you got a question, she'll be happy to either answer it or get the answer for you. And that's important. Lisa, thank you for taking the time to be with me this morning and all. I applaud you for all that you have done and all that you do. You're a very, very sweet young lady, and I love you to death. And just keep up the great work with your new endeavors. And we'll get together and talk again soon.
I love that. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you very much. So,
all right, you take care. And that'll do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know this week with Lisa Hammett. And I hope you'll be here again next week at the same time for another Someone You Should Know. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and remember, as I have said, and my wife reminded me to keep saying it, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
I love that.